7 questions to get clarity to supersize and grow your business. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. And I think yesterday I mentioned we would talk about 8 questions, but I called it 7 today because it's a little bit more attractive a number. 7 is a more attractive number than 8 in a lot of circles. So what are we going to talk about today? How do we get clear? To me, it's really easy to be confused and unfocused. There's lots of idioms about being unfocused. We talked about one yesterday, clear as mud, right? But there aren't really any on clarity. There's some on focus, but not clarity. So it's interesting that there's a lot about confusion. You know, it's easy to be confused, especially in different areas and aspects of our business. But one of the places we can absolutely really mess ourselves up is if we're not clear on the 7 questions that I'm going to share with you in a minute. But what are some ways to be confused? What are some idioms about being confused? I'm going to grab my magnifying glass because I looked a couple up this morning. Clear as mud, of course, means confusion. It doesn't mean that we're clear. It doesn't mean that we're communicating in a way that other people can relate to and understand. To be all Greek to someone, I love that one as well. I remember growing up and my mom would say, well, that's Greek to me, meaning I don't understand what you're talking about at all. Can you explain it to me in another way? To be mixed up or to mix something up is a sign of confusion, which is the opposite of clarity and focus. To snatch one's head or head scratching. Oh, to scratch one's head or head scratching. To not be clear on something. To mess with someone's head. Has anyone ever messed with your head? I have definitely had my head messed with in my day in different businesses and in different organizations. I found in corporate America, a lot of times I was the only woman, and for some reason that irritated a lot of the people that I worked with, which were normally gentlemen back in the day. And so they would mess with me. They'd pull practical jokes. They would do stuff just to see if they could throw me off or get me upset. And of course it never worked. And if it did, it only worked in private because I certainly wasn't going to let them see that I was upset about something. So to throw somebody off balance, to throw somebody for a loop, to be thrown for a loop, to be thrown off balance, to throw somebody off, just to trip them up, or I guess to trip people up. That would be a good one too. Those are all examples of idioms that describe confusion. So we want the opposite of confusion. Number one, no one is going to be more clear on our business than we are. And so we need to set the example and answer these questions for ourselves. And it's tempting to answer them once and then forget about them, just set it and forget it. But it's like so many other things in our life. We need to continually improve and always be evaluating and evolving and changing as things around us change. So what are these clarifying questions that we should ask ourselves? Number one, who is your customer? Who is going to be interacting with you? Who do you want to be in business with? Who do you want to serve? Who do you want to help? Who do you want to solve problems for? Absolutely the starting point of everything. Number two, what makes you different than other people that want to do something similar to what you're doing? So if you're an accountant, what makes you the best accountant for the people that you want to serve? What makes you different? Number three, how do others see you? And this one's kind of hard. It's hard to know how other people see us unless we ask or look for or seek out feedback. Number four, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? We want to be clear with ourselves and honest with ourselves in terms of, well, what am I good at? And it's more, what do I love to do versus what do I not love to do? I was having this conversation with my son-in-law the other day, and he was talking about he doesn't let people know that he's good at things that he doesn't like to do. And I said, that's absolutely perfect. He said, because otherwise they'll expect me to do it all the time, and there are things I don't like to do. So he holds back sometimes, and he's really good at certain parts and aspects of his job, but he dislikes doing those things, so he just kind of keeps it a secret or keeps it to himself that he's proficient and awesome at those things. Because he's awesome at all kinds of things, but he'd rather do the things he's great at and awesome at and do more of those and less of the things that he's good at and awesome at, but he doesn't love doing. And I think we need to do the same with ourselves. We need to know, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our likes? What are our dislikes? What really gets our bell ringing and we love doing? Number five, where do you want to be in 5 years? Now this one is a goodie, an oldie, but these are all good and old questions, right? I'm sure you've heard these before. I just like that when we put them together, they give us a clear picture of where we want to go. So, you know, where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? I think I first did this with probably Tony Robbins in the 70s, maybe the late 70s. Boy, oh boy, that was a long time ago. But he, of course, learned these things from Jim Rohn and his teachers and mentors, and from reading and learning and growing, and continues to share the knowledge and wisdom that he's gained with us throughout the world. And we have to ask ourselves, where do we want to be in 5 years from now? Because if we don't ask ourselves and have a future vision, we're just going to keep rolling and running in place like on that hamster wheel where or on, I say my exercise bike, because I ride and ride and ride and ride thousands of miles, but I don't ever get anywhere but in my exercise room, right? Number 6, what's your big why? I learned an exercise from Dean Graziosi at the beginning of 2020, and I'd heard it before and done it hundreds of times before with myself and other people, the 5 whys exercise. But Dean Graziosi learned it from, I don't know, I think it was in Genius Network or somewhere, to ask a series of 7 whys, to take it deeper, to really get to the crux and the core. And I suppose you could ask yourself 100 whys if that's what it takes to get to the core of what is motivating or moving you. But know, what is your big why? Why do you even want to have a business? What are you in business for? What's most important to you? What are your priorities? Number 7, what do you really want? I mean, what do you really, really want? And how much money do you want to make? I mean, I think it's really important to know how much money you want to make and where you're going with your business. It's a little different than what's your goal for 5 years from now. Oh, what do you really want and how much do you want to make are separate questions. So that's how we get to the 8. I combined those because I wanted to get to 7 for this. But what do you really want and how much money do you want to make? They're 2 different questions. Now, these are great questions, and I actually started a new notebook so that I would remind myself to ask myself these things regularly, because things change all the time in our business and in our lives. We have big events, not always as big as COVID-19, where it's impacting, literally the whole planet. But we, on an individual basis, are always having changes and challenges and things go on in our life. We get married, we get divorced, we start a business, we shut a business down. We have a job, we get a different job, we lose a job, whatever. We need to be able to ask ourselves these questions, not only for supersizing and growing our business, but for ourselves, for our personal lives. So I'd be curious, do you have a series of questions like this that you ask yourself on some frequency? I do this every year. Maybe you do it every year. Maybe you do it every quarter. And it doesn't have to be that you start a notebook and you write a whole bunch of answers to it. But every once in a while, at least, once every couple of years, I want to actually sit down and reevaluate and ask myself these questions. I challenge you to do the same. Curious, what do you do to get clarity, to make sure that you're clear and consistent and concise and communicating to people what it is that you need them to know to help them bring your vision of the business that you're growing to life? Share that in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll be with you tomorrow with another interesting idiom. What does it mean? Where does it come from? How can you use it to grow and build your business? Or maybe even use it in different areas and aspects of your life. Remember, on the Supersize Your Business page, we've got about 1,000 of these idioms, what they mean, where they came from, and how you can apply them to your business and growing your business. If you have any questions, or if there's an idiom that you have a burning desire to know what it means and where it came from, hit me up in the comments below. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow. Have an awesome day.